edition of Real Talk, and as you can see, it's just me today, just Alyssa Mahadeo, bringing Real Talk to you today with my special guest, Miss, is it Adaoma?
It is Adaoma.
Adaoma Patterson, who is the current president of the JCA, and also newly elected, right?
It's been a year.
It's been a year,
Yeah,
so you've been a year in office.
Right.
All right, and I believe you're the 5th female president of the JCA?
I believe so, and the 17th president of the Jamaican Canadian Association. We've been around a long time.
All right. So tell us, for people who don't know, what is the JCA?
So it's a really good question because most people only know one of two things. They hear it on the radio all the time. So the Jamaican Canadian Association, we turned 55 this August. It is a community, cultural, and social services organization that has been around for 55 years in the Greater Toronto area. So we promote culture, particularly the Jamaican Caribbean culture. We run programs. Right now we have a summer camp for kids that's happening. We tutor kids throughout the school year. We have lots of events that celebrate the Jamaica independence. And so it's a mix and a very complex, more complicated than people think.
So did you attend actually the conference that just happened in Jamaica?
I did. I was in Jamaica last week. It was very hot.
I was gonna say, I mean, we have good weather here now, so it's not a big deal. But
not
Jamaica
like
right now?
Kingston. Yeah. Kingston was hot, and the conference was really interesting because there were people from Canada, mostly Ontario and Quebec, the UK, and the US, and so it was our opportunity to come together to look at the issues that Jamaica's facing and talk about what contribution we as folks living in the diaspora can make.
Okay, so what are the types of things that were discussed at the conference, and was it just directly related to what's happening in Jamaica, or is it helping here as well?
Yeah, it's mostly focused on Jamaica and those of us who are living abroad, you know, because many, like with many Caribbean islands, you know, get lots of support from people who no longer live in the country. And so Jamaica, similar to most places, including Canada, healthcare, education, crime, development, making sure that children have what they need to grow and thrive. And so how do we, by 2030, that's their ambition, make significant inroads into many of those things that are still challenging Jamaica? So it was deep. It wasn't vacation. No beach.
As work is, sometimes when you go, but you're like, yeah, I'm going on an international trip, but I got to do all this work.
It was work. It was work. Really tough conversations. So I presented on a panel, for example, that talked about migrant workers. So those who are coming from Jamaica to work here, particularly farm workers or others, international students, and the challenges they face when they come to Canada.
Yeah. And who were some of the people actually in attendance, dignitary-wise?
So all of the official folks from the government were there. The event is hosted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Okay. So the minister, Kamina Johnson-Smith, she kind of led, and her team led this. So all of the major ministers were there. We did have a little bit of downtime in terms of entertainment. So there were, you know, we had some performances, things that really were about the culture though. But just really heads of organizations here, all of the consul generals. So Mr. Lloyd Wilkes and our High Commissioner who's in Ottawa, Mrs. Janice Miller were there. But people who are just really passionate about supporting Jamaica. So many folks from organizations and people who used to go to school there, so alumni associations, they were all in attendance.
Interesting. So Adaoma, tell us a little bit about yourself. You were born and raised in Jamaica.
I wasn't.
You weren't?
No.
Okay, so see it. President of the Jamaican Canadian Association, guys.
See, so JCA is not a place just for people who are born in Jamaica. We have people who are Canadians and lots of people who are part of the organization. So that's an important thing to say. Okay. I was actually born in Winnipeg.
Okay.
And I...
All right.
There's a shock. So my parents came to Canada in the 1960s, and they actually ended up in Winnipeg. Like they
Interesting.
I know my dad got into the University of Manitoba, so he attended school and got his master's there. And then my mom, she just like basically went eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Had no idea about what Canada was.
Which province do I want to go to? Let's jump into that.
She had three options, and she said Winnipeg sounded interesting. That's how she ended up there. So I was born there, but we did move back when I was a baby to Jamaica. So I actually started school in Kingston.
Okay, so you went to school a little bit in Kingston.
Yes, I did. I started in primary school. And then we came back to Canada, and we went back to Winnipeg. So I grew up in Winnipeg and grew up in the organizations. There is a Jamaican Association and a Caribbean organization in Winnipeg.
Is there?
There are, and they've been around a long time.
And there's a community as well?
There's a community, yes, yes. And so many, much of the community now is older, because what happens is, as we grow up, we kind of head out to Toronto or Vancouver. We go where our careers take us. But there is still a strong and vibrant Jamaican Association there, and Afro-Caribbean Association of Manitoba still around.
That's really interesting to know, because I've actually spoken to another guest, and she was born and raised in Jamaica, and then her family, again, almost like you, moved to Winnipeg. And so she grew up in Winnipeg, and she said she hated it.
Yeah.
She was like, I was always different. I stood out. People were very kind of abrasive. There was a lot of stigma, prejudice, and things like that. So how was it growing up for you?
So I think what sheltered me from, so for sure, it's not, the diversity looks nothing like the greater Toronto area. Yeah. And there's nowhere else in Canada that looks like the GTA, right? So it's just the way it is. I think what sheltered my sister and I really was that we were raised by a village. My parents were always a part of an organization. Okay. Every Saturday we would take the bus and go to the association hall, and we learned to dance. We learned cultural dancing. Even having folks from Jamaica, from National Dance Theatre of Jamaica, come and teach us in the summer. And so because we were always connected, I didn't feel the same level of always having that stigma. In elementary, it was difficult because, you're the only one that looks like you in elementary. And then because I had come back, I came with a Jamaican accent. And so that was a little bit tough. But again, it was just all about the involvement of, my parents, my family in organizations growing up. And so to this day, many of us who grew up in that dance group and in the organization, we stay connected. We're all over the world now, but it was really a space that protected us.
Interesting. It's different to hear the different perspectives of, growing up in other provinces, because again, I was born and raised here in Toronto, so I've only ever known this. And even growing up in Toronto, in the 90s, I find it was a lot different than it is now.
Absolutely.
Right? There's a lot more diversity. There's a lot more people that you see from all over the world, and everyone is a lot more accepting of each other.
Right.
Whereas when you were younger, it was kind of just the majority
you were
of
odd.
So you were the crazy one, essentially. They were like, who is this person and why is she here, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and for sure, Winnipeg had that, and had racism. I would go, I remember the old Eaton's, I'm aging myself. And so we would be downtown at Eaton's, and someone would come up to you and say, hi dear, where do you come from? And I'm like, well, I was born in Winnipeg. No, where did you really come from? Right? So of course I had those experiences, but really I think for children, the village and having a really nurturing community is so important. And a lot of kids in the GTA, because it's so big, they miss out on that.
We had this conversation actually too with someone else. Same thing. I find children aren't being raised with a community anymore. They're kind of just being raised by their parents.
Exactly.
So they only kind of get one viewpoint and one level of teaching.
That's right. And also just that idea that it's more than just my parents that are responsible for me, right? So, if I have grandparents and just other people in the community who may not be related to you by blood, but who look out for you, who take care of you like they're, your children. It makes such a difference. It also protects you and shields you from when life gets really tough and you have to deal with things like racism.
Yeah, and even to hear a different perspective and to have someone else to talk to who's not your parents.
Right. Exactly. And other kids who also, you guys can get into trouble together and just know that it's all good at the end of the day. I think I see, even with my son, that's something missing. So he does go to Winnipeg most summers. Yeah, because my mom is still there.
Oh, your mom's still there,
right?
Yeah,
and I still have a lot of family there. So every summer for the last few summers, he has gone and he's participated in the cultural festival that we did when we were kids and, worked a little bit there and then just be connected to family and the organization in the same way.
That's good. That's really good. So when did you move to Toronto then?
It's probably about 20 years now.
Okay.
And I really just came, like, it was time to leave Winnipeg. It felt a little bit confining. So I came and I started working, and then I finished my degree at the University of Windsor. So I moved to Windsor for a little bit and then came back here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's it been like, what's the difference, going to Winnipeg and then coming here and then even going back?
Yeah, so it feels a little bit strange returning, and I don't get back as often as I should.
As you would hope.
My mother says, yeah.
She's like, you don't come home.
That's right. Well, we say you need to come here now. Yeah, none of us are there anymore. So, and I've always lived in Peel. Like I've lived in Mississauga and lived in Brampton. So I actually never lived in Toronto.
Okay, so you don't even know what it's like to live in the city.
Yeah, I do most of my community work in Toronto.
Okay.
Though, and I work for regional government here in Peel region. So I work for the region of Peel. So it's coming down. It's a huge place. And so it's hard sometimes for people to get that sense of connection and community. I think that's the biggest adjustment is like, what's your circle look like now? But there are a lot of us from Winnipeg here. Like, you have no idea.
And it's again, I would have never thought that the Jamaican, population would have come and when they immigrated and settled in other provinces other than Toronto.
And they do.
Why would you come to Toronto?
Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Alberta.
And
they all have Jamaican and Caribbean organizations. Yeah.
I actually heard that there was a Caribbean organization up in the Yukon or the Northwest Territories.
Yes, there probably are. And someone at the conference, she is in Nunavut working. A Jamaican living in Nunavut and working as a public health worker.
Yeah,
right? So
that's crazy. We wouldn't have even thought of that.
Yeah, people go everywhere, you know. So, the Greater Toronto area is cool, but there are other places in Canada that you can go and live. So,
some great insight. So, we're going to continue talking about the JCA and, some of your career and how you got into this. Because I know you were also involved in politics as well a little bit.
Okay.
All right. So, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back shortly.
Discover the incredible India.
Think you have what it takes to bring value to the community? The TCN TV network is expanding and now accepting TV show proposals. Here's an opportunity to build celebrity status and become part of an elite group of community advocates that are focused on building, strengthening, and empowering our community in a positive way. Are you interested in embarking on a new adventure? TCN TV is searching for people interested in opportunities to change the conversation and pave an unforgettable legacy. If you feel you have something of value to offer, send a written show proposal to shows@mytcntv.com.
Welcome back, and you're watching Real Talk with Alyssa Mahadeo and special guest Adaoma Patterson, president of the JCA. So before we went to break, we were actually talking a little bit about growing up in Winnipeg, coming over to Toronto, going back to Winnipeg, and a little bit about your early life and, what it was like growing up in a different province than Toronto. Because everyone's so used to the diversity of Toronto that it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around what it would be like to live somewhere else.
Right.
So, in addition to that, how is it that you started your career here in Toronto?
So when I came, I was like everyone else who's that age, looking
to go to school.
Yeah, and just trying to figure out, okay, what's my direction? And so my first real job, I would say, was with the YMCA.
Okay.
And I was the coordinator for a program called the Black Achievers Program. And so that ran in both Brampton, Mississauga, and some places in Toronto. And it was modeled after an American program that was about mentorship. And so the idea was that kids who were in high school, those who may be on kind of that border of going one way or the other, that if we intervene by matching them with mentors, then that would be, research shows that can make the difference in making sure that they finish high school.
Definitely.
So I coordinated the Mississauga program for 2 years.
Okay.
That was my first kind of real insight into the community, but also into the school system and some of the challenges that kids face here in the GTA. And so from there, I did a couple of things. Like I said, moved to Windsor, finished my degree, came back here, and then my real day job. People think JCA is my job. It's a volunteer.
Which is not.
I may act. It may seem like it because of the number of hours.
But you spend a lot of time there because because it's volunteer work. I find there's a lot more work that goes into volunteer work than your actual career.
Yeah, and particularly with community organizations, it really is a 24/7 operation. But in my current job, I work for the region of Peel.
Okay.
And I am the advisor for the Peel Poverty Reduction Strategy. So my space and my comfort is always in things that are about social justice, about community development and community building. And so that's what I do for a living as well.
Is this something that you always wanted to do, going to school and stuff
I
like
always
that?
knew it was, my space was in community or in government trying to influence systems. So what are the things that need to change? What don't work for people, particularly those who are most vulnerable, those who are living in poverty or facing other kinds of stigma, racism, discrimination. How is it that we navigate the system and change the system? Like, what could I do within a system to help create that awareness and make things different? So I always knew that's, where I would end up. I didn't know exactly what.
Yeah.
So I've been working for the region of Peel for some time, and then volunteering in the community as well for years. But I also did a small stint in business. I created the Essence of Mahogany Bridal and Beauty Show.
Okay.
So I did that for 5 years. I know.
That just like a side project?
It was always a side project. Always got a side hustle.
Yeah.
And so we actually ran that at Pearson Convention Center and at a place in Scarborough as well. And so it really was about trying to get small businesses the promotion and the attention so that folks who were getting married, they would not just choose kind of the mainstream large companies for their services. And then you wanted maybe a cultural perspective. You wanted black cake, or you want a menu.
Who even, kind of understand your culture a little bit more in depth, kind of. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely understand that. I mean, there's more. Again, this year just alone, there's been so many smaller events that I've seen, and even they've been in Toronto as well. Catering to the different cultures.
That's right.
And tying cultures together in different, because now so many of us, there are so many couples out there are interracial.
That's right.
So
exactly. So right.
We want to include both sides.
And mix. Yeah. So when we created that, I think it was 2004. It was still fairly new. Just this idea of having a very specific event where people could come, consumers could come, and then get the businesses that had, well, one, supporting small business, and then two, the cultural piece. So so I've done a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So before you were the president of the JCA, you actually worked with the JCA as in another role.
I was on the board previously.
Okay.
And my major work involved helping them go through a big organizational review.
Okay.
And so do some change management work. So as I mentioned, JCA is 55 this year. And so it was time to
55, wow.
Yeah, I know.
They've been around a long time.
Yeah, since before we were born. And so it was time for them to really look at their structure and the things that were preventing growth and how to engage younger people and a broader demographic in the organization. And so I led that review, and it resulted now in the organization splitting into two.
Okay.
So we have one that's focused just on delivering our social services programs. So if you need counseling or help with employment, things that are funded, those programs are all funded by the government. That is now one organization. And then I'm leading the other side, the other organization, which is about culture, supporting our young people, advocacy, so speaking out on many issues that are happening, that affect the community.
I like that, and something that you said too about getting more youth involved. So this is a big thing for me, because I find a lot of bigger organizations who have been around for a long time are not, having the support of the younger generation.
That's right.
And they're the future. They're the ones that are going to contribute the new ideas that are going to keep the company or the business or the organization thriving in the years to come.
Absolutely.
So what is your plan to get, to entice the youth, to get them more involved?
So there are a couple of things and a couple of strategies. There's no one approach, because even when we talk about youth, what does that mean? So are they teenagers? Are they young adults? And so JCA has grappled with that. We've had over the 55 years a number of youth groups, and there's always this tension between the older and the younger, right? Young people want their ideas heard. The older people are like, okay, well, it has to be done this way, right? And the older we get, the more settled we get. We don't like change. And so we now have a younger board. So that's the first thing, because JCA has always had, age-wise, an older board.
And I know this. A lot of the organizations in Toronto who are from the Caribbean diaspora all have an older board.
Right. And so if you look at our board composition, actually it's the first time in probably ever it's all women.
Okay.
That just kind of worked out.
It's a change. The future, guys.
Very a big change. And it's a wide range. We have someone who's doing a postgraduate degree right now on the board.
Okay.
We have a young woman who works as an early childhood educator. So we think we have a good mix. So that's the first start. The leadership reflects the direction that we want to go in.
Yeah.
And then we've been intentional about outreaching to particularly university and college students. So we now have a group of international students who want to become affiliate members and to drive some of that membership and that demographic. So students who are studying here but may plan to go back to Jamaica or other parts of the Caribbean or the States after, because they kind of feel disconnected, right? They're just here for school. And then who do they go to for help, and just that sense of community. So that's been a big push. And then we do things for children and young people. So we have a Saturday morning tutoring program, as I mentioned, every Saturday. They're learning robotics now. So we're also introducing things that they need that will build their skills and will make sure that they succeed in the future. And then trying to get their parents out, which some of them are young people as well, because they're young kids. To participate. So it's not one strategy, but it's finding a way to create programming that is of interest to young people, giving them a voice in leadership positions, and saying to the older ones, okay, your job is to mentor and to facilitate leadership development, right? Not to necessarily always have the say, and that it must be done your way.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's how I personally feel too, because I'm like, you should never tell the younger generation no. I find no has become a word that's kind of fizzling out and dying now. It's kind of, okay, well, let's see how this can work. How we can implement this.
And just because it doesn't look like what you're used to doesn't mean it's not as valuable, or that the outcome would be the same, right? So we all want the organization to succeed, but there are different ways to get there.
Well, even things like using social media, right? And that's a great way to even connect with younger people who are, again, from the Jamaican diaspora. I've spoken to a couple of youth, and they're like, we don't even know what they're doing for the country.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And for you guys to be the link even to the government in Jamaica is huge for them, because they're like, oh, if I speak to this person, then maybe my question or my concern will get back to the prime minister or the president, right?
Right. So we don't spend as much time focusing on on addressing the issues directly that's happening in Jamaica, but we make the link. So if people come here, we get a lot of calls for help. For example, when people immigrate and they don't know where to go, or they're having an issue with the work permit or the residency, or someone passes away here. So we get lots of those, like, you need to intervene now kind of emergency situations. But a couple of things I would say, just based on my experience, no one organization is going to be everything to everyone. There are 300,000 Jamaicans living in the Greater Toronto area.
That's a lot of them.
And they're all over. They've got different interests and things that they're committed to. We welcome people to come and provide the feedback, and then to say, okay, well, how can I contribute, right? Because it's easy kind of to sit on the sidelines and then be critical of lots of things that are happening in the community, but the change only happens when you're there, right? And so our job is to make sure we're as open as possible and willing to have your ideas be heard, and to figure out ways to get you involved, and that's really what this board represents. It's people who just saw an ad and they said, you know what, I think I want to join the JCA. I think I want to be part of that legacy and to use my voice to help influence the change.
And are there meetings, or is there like even like a website that people can just go on, even if they don't want to come to the meetings, like, and they can still find out on the information that the association's working on?
We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook,
which is awesome.
And we're really active. And I just tweeted before this interview. We of course have a website, jcaontario.org. So we've really ramped up the social media presence. I posted every day, all day while I was in Jamaica to let people know what was happening, what the conversation was like, what are some of the things that we were talking about. We have been really intentional about making sure we comment on things that are happening in the community. So if there's a decision that's made by government that we think doesn't work for the community, we put out a perspective. We send that to the minister and the ministry who's responsible. So there are lots of ways to find us. You know, I'm accessible and around. I try to get to as many community events as possible. We advertise. So we advertise in various papers, Toronto Caribbean, and a number of other publications. And of course, you can always just link us through traditional means. You can stop by the JCA. It's a community center. We're one of the only organizations in the community that owns a building. And so we're quite proud of that and really working hard to maintain that. It's available for rent. Lots of people have their birthday parties, their wedding receptions, or their fundraisers there. So we get calls for all kinds of support and help.
That's good to know. That's really great to know. So we're gonna take a quick break, and when we get back, we're gonna hear some more from Miss Adaoma Patterson about her political career.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Discover the incredible India.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk with Alyssa Mahadeo. Grant is missing today because, you know, he decided he was going to take a day off. Anyways, we are here with Miss Adaoma Patterson, president of the JCA, and we've been talking about some of the, you know, initiatives that the JCA has been a part of, the things it's been working on, and how they are working towards helping the community and future generations as well. So, Adaoma, while we were on break, I actually just mentioned, I heard about the JCA Legacy Project. And I know that that was something that probably came up when you started your presidency last year.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we realized as we're attracting younger people and even newer Jamaican Canadians, so people who immigrated more recently, is that we haven't really done a good job of telling our story, both as a community and then as an organization. And so we're really excited to embark on what we call a legacy project, and it's basically kind of a mini documentary, a series of vignettes on the people who are the legacy people in the organization. So people like Roy Williams, who was the first president of the Jamaican Canadian Association, but he was also the first Black person to serve on the Toronto Police Services Board. And some of the other individuals who fought for housing, access, you know, when they came in the 60s and 70s, they couldn't get a place because when they showed up, people didn't want to rent because of their skin color, who fought for many of the changes through legislation. Many people have no idea, and our kids have no idea.
That's the thing, and then they're just like, you know what? I feel like it's sometimes taken for granted.
Exactly.
What it is that you have. You don't know the struggle it took to get there.
Exactly.
It's even women's right to vote.
That's right.
Something like that. And then I know that they they want to put a woman on the bill as well, right?
Yes, Viola Desmond, yeah.
So I think that's a great way to, work on creating a legacy project and a documentary to educate. It's something that should be played, I find, in schools,
right.
like even in history class, Canadian history.
Yeah, for sure. And so our plan is to record, a lot of the folks that we are wanting to document are now in their 80s and 90s. And so it's important to tell their story and have them on camera from their perspective. And then to find ways, exactly as you said, to share it with schools, maybe through libraries, and just be able to say that, yes, the Jamaican Canadian community, the Caribbean community has had an impact. Because when you see the news, you don't always get that sense, right?
Yep.
A lot of negativity gets reported. And, we've really paved the way for many people, including many other communities.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're excited. We're getting ready to ramp that up. We have a really busy weekend, though, with Independence activities.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
But that's good. I mean, at least people are getting out there. They're seeing what's happening. And I think that, again, this project will do well. I think it'll do really well. A lot of people will see it and really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're really, really excited. And we have some really creative people. So it's actually going to be a beautiful, visually beautiful document as well.
Awesome. So I know that 2 years ago you were running in the federal election. And I believe you were running for the NDP.
I did. I ran in Brampton West. And right here in Brampton.
Right here in Brampton.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that experience. Why did you decide to run? Because
really
it's
good question.
Why do you decide to get into politics?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like myself, I don't understand politics. Yes, I have ideas and things I want to contribute back, but I'm just like, I don't know where I would start with any of those things. So why did you decide to run?
So a couple of things. The last few years, people have been asking me,
okay,
have you ever considered politics? Maybe you should run for councillor or member of parliament or member of provincial parliament. And I kept saying, nah, I don't think so. And then in 2014, I got a call from the party, and I had coffee with someone, and he said, you know what, your name's come up a few times. We're looking for candidates in Brampton. Are you interested in running? I said, I don't know. I have a teenager, the impact, the time. Let me think about it. So I started to think about it. I talked to some folks who had run, those who ran and won, and those who ran and didn't win. Some mentors of mine, particularly women, and just thinking about the potential impact that
you could have
a campaign, could have. And so then talked to my family, my child, most importantly, my son. And so then I thought, you know what? I think there's an opportunity here for me to create some awareness, one, about the importance of becoming engaged in the political system as a voter, as a member of a party. What does that look like? Because it's complicated, and a lot of people stay away because they're like, politics, I don't know, don't trust politicians.
It's very there's a negative light that's kind of on it right now, and like, especially in the States, like, they've not helped their situation at all.
Yes, exactly.
But for you to be like, when someone hears that you're a politician or you're involved in politics,
I know, they kind of give you side eye.
Yeah.
Like,
they
really?
judge you. They're like,
what's your
shady.
motive?
What are you doing?
That's right. And so, I think my campaign was about addressing some of those concerns, because I intentionally reached out to people who were always hesitant about the system or cynical about the system, and particularly young people. I ended up, a lot of young people ended up coming on the campaign, and I think I ran one of the most diverse campaigns, got a really good cross-section of volunteers that represent the Brampton community, both age-wise and ethnicity and gender and language. And really, for me, that was what I was most proud of. So obviously I didn't win. Running as an NDP candidate in Brampton West was an uphill battle, because it's been a Liberal riding for many years, forever. But I think I met a lot of people I would never have met
if you hadn't done it.
Right. Yeah. Brought communities together. So the Muslim community, the opportunity to understand the issues that are important to them. Those folks from the Black community, whether it's Caribbean or African, other members of the South Asian community, Punjabi, Chinese community, just this ability to dialogue and to come together in ways that we never do, right? We worship in separate spaces oftentimes.
It's very hardly, we're only together when we're at school with our peers.
Exactly. And so this campaign kind of pushed those boundaries a little bit, and we got to know each other in different ways. And so it was a lot of work.
As I imagine it would be.
It's a lot of work. And it confirms some of the things that people are concerned about. The importance of money and the ability to raise money to run an effective campaign, that I confirmed. You need a lot of money to run. The role of the party and the party message, so people really follow a leader. And so your impact in a riding, limited, right? Yeah. So people are looking, they say, well, I'm liberal, I can't vote for you, or I'm conservative, I can't vote for you. So that's a huge part of our political system. People just vote for party, regardless of who the candidate is.
And that's really funny that you say that. Like, someone's like, no, I'm liberal, no, I can't, I'm conservative. Because for me personally, like, when I go to the voting poll, because I can vote now, it's a matter of like, I should go vote because I have this right. And then when I do go to vote, I'm like, well,
who do I vote for?
Who do I vote for? And then who also resonated the most with me? Right. Who did I like the most when I heard them speak? Right. Who debate, like in the debate, we'll watch the debate, you'll see them on TV. And I'm like, well, who did I like the most? And then vote for that person opposed to voting for a specific party. Because half the time I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
And in our community, though, there's definitely party allegiance because people immigrated during a period where, they accredit Mr. Trudeau Sr. with opening the doors to that, and so people, they just vote that way. Their families always voted that way. They own businesses. So they always think, well, I just have to continue voting that way. But I would say that, it's important to look critically at the issues and what the party stands for, what any party stands for today, and to not only be engaged on the day of voting. I mean, that was the other thing that was kind of eye-opening for me, that there's a whole process leading up to even who your candidate is. And most people don't know, like, how do you become a candidate? Because you have to go through a nomination process.
Someone has to vouch for you.
And you have to sign up members to get, to become the successful candidate just to be nominated for your party. And I didn't see a lot of people that look like you and I at those meetings and in that lead up to the election. True. People just vote on the day and they think that's all there is to politics.
That's all I need. I just voted.
But being involved in the party, attending the riding association meetings, understanding what's going on, that's actually where the power and the politics actually happens.
And I think in the next election, when that happens, it'd be good if, again, it'd be really, really easily accessible for the public to see, because I know that people don't have the time to dedicate to go to meetings.
Right.
Whereas that's where you get all the information. Exactly. And I noticed that too, Brampton Focus has also been working on, trying to get more of those events televised, which is amazing because then more people can get information that they need. And be more informed when it comes voting day.
That's right. We, at the JCA, we will be hosting a town hall in Brampton. So a large number of our membership now lives in Brampton.
Okay.
And so we'll be hosting a town hall on the political process. We did a workshop for people who may be interested in running. We did that earlier this year so that they really understand what it takes, because it seems easy. But we talked about things like the fact that you need to really fundraise. You're really gonna have to push people and ask, that you have to sign up members, that the key to winning is door knocking, like just day and night.
Having people get behind your message. Otherwise, if I don't like you, I'm not voting for you, kind of thing.
Yeah. So how do you do that? How do you mobilize a team? How do you choose a campaign manager? Those kinds of things. How do you make sure that you're sticking to the party message and you're gonna get caught up in scandal, like which is an increasing issue with social media. So we have been also working to support people who want to run, regardless of party or level of government.
Just people who
providing and connecting people who have the experience with those who are interested. And like I said, we will be hosting a town hall this fall for folks in Brampton to just come out and talk about the process.
Yeah. Would you run again?
I never say no, because if I say no, and then I turn around and run, people are like, you said no. So I know no.
You leave it. It's open. Now,
yeah. Politics is partly timing, and so you got to know like when's the right time, and does that work out for you? But with my commitment to JCA, I don't have the time now, right? So it wouldn't happen next year. For sure. I have a 2-year term at the JCA, and who knows, I may extend that. And we really have a focus. We have a strategic plan that I'm pushing to implement and to make sure that all of those objectives are met.
That's great. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap things up here with Adaoma Patterson. You're watching Real Talk.
Think you have what it takes to bring value to the community? The TCN TV network is expanding and now accepting TV show proposals. Here's an opportunity to build celebrity status and become part of an elite group of community advocates that are focused on building, strengthening, and empowering our community in a positive way. Are you interested in embarking on a new adventure? TCN TV is searching for people interested in opportunities to change the conversation and pave an unforgettable legacy. If you feel you have something of value to offer, send a written show proposal to shows@mytcntv.com.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk with Alyssa Mahadeo and special guest Adaoma Patterson. We are discussing some really interesting things, about politics, about helping the community, about, just any and everything that's going to, help the community and everything progress in the coming years. And Adaoma actually works for the region of Peel. So she does a little bit of work in its poverty reduction, you said, right?
Yes.
So tell us about what you do for the region of Peel.
Sure. So if I had to describe my job, because it's very hard to describe.
Well, also people are just like, that sounds really boring. What is she doing?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to start talking about policy and legislation.
They're going to be like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So it's a bit of community development, community building, and policy. So as the advisor for the Peel Poverty Reduction Strategy, which is a mouthful, it's my job to make sure that the issues that many people are struggling with, over 200,000 people live in poverty in Peel. That's Mississauga, Brampton, Caledon. Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
And that was the previous census. So we're waiting to hear what the 2016 numbers are.
And that's funny that you say that there's so many people living in poverty in Brampton, because our land tax and our insurance, everything is so high.
And Peel is an expensive place to live.
Yeah, it is.
So if you think about rent and one-bedroom apartments, which are probably averaging $1,300 a month, and you're working minimum wage, even full-time, you are having trouble making ends meet in this community. So costs are expensive. Transit, if you take the bus and you buy that monthly bus pass, and then often many families are choosing between paying that rent and buying food, right? Relying on food
some decisions
banks
that you really don't want to have to make.
You should never have to make.
Yeah.
And so this work is about addressing those issues, creating the awareness. Most residents, most people who live in Brampton, Mississauga, and Caledon have no idea, because it looks like everyone's doing
well for themselves,
right?
Yeah.
Beautiful houses, rows and rows. Everybody's got nice cars. But not everybody has nice cars, and many people are living in basement apartments. They're renting a room because they can't afford an apartment.
And they have big families too. That's the other thing. Like, you're living in a basement apartment, but you have like 6 people in your family.
That's right. Or it's several families paying for that mortgage.
Also, yes.
Right. So we just make sure that we continuously create awareness about that, and then look at opportunities that all of us can do to mitigate that, because poverty cannot be solved just by government. If it could, it would have been done already. Residents have to play a role. You play a role by voting and making sure you're voting for people who want to address the issues. All people in the community, regardless of income, should feel safe, should have stable housing, should not have to choose between using that food bank and paying their rent for families. We have a 6-year wait list for subsidized housing in Peel region. That's insane. Right? So what do you do in the meantime? You're really struggling to figure out. We have shelters in Peel, right?
And I'm sure people don't even know that.
Yeah, they probably don't. Because unlike Toronto, where it's very obvious because you've got communities, large
the poverty
communities.
Is very evident, I find, in Toronto.
Absolutely.
Whereas in Brampton it's a little bit hidden.
Absolutely. And so that's one of the challenges, both for people, for residents who may be doing well, but also for politicians. And so part of our task is to make sure that politicians also, when they're making investments or making decisions, that they're remembering that it isn't just a Toronto or Hamilton problem, that many people who live in the 905, whether you're in Peel or York region, are struggling, right? And housing is critical. Just the cost of buying a home or renting is really what's keeping many families, whether you're middle income or low income, from moving ahead. And so my work, I go out, I talk to people who are maybe in the shelter or who are struggling, people on Ontario Works or disability, people who can't find a job. They got laid off because the company downsized and it's taking them a long time to find a job. How do we support them? How do we make the system work better for them? What do we do when the wait list is 6 years because there are not enough units? What do we do? How do we support people and help them? So that's really what my work is about. We have an affordable transit program in Mississauga with My Way Transit that is subsidizing the cost of transportation for people in low income so that they can take the bus. They can afford to buy that monthly pass.
Okay.
And so we manage that program. We pilot and we engage, so partners like Knights Table, United Way, all of us are at the school boards, all of us, because children are going to school hungry. So are there breakfast programs at the schools? Are there healthy nutrition programs so kids are getting a healthy meal at least while they're at school? Those are the kinds of things that I do.
That's a lot, like, just for like one person. I'm sure you have a team of people that also work on it.
It's a tiny team, but they're, we're really passionate about, and it's not just about the work, right?
Yeah.
It's really about people.
And it's about helping them, right? Because again, if you're sitting living your comfortable life and someone else is struggling, you're kind of like, what am I doing? This person is this is my neighbor.
And that's it. Yeah. It could be your neighbor, and you may not know, because of course nobody wants to. We're all afraid.
They want to draw attention to themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you go and you visit food banks on the days that they're open, they're full. Right. When you go to Knights Table serves a hot meal 365 days a year for people who need that meal, and that space is full. So it means that there's a need in the community.
So is the region of Peel working directly also with like the city councillors and the mayor in Brampton and stuff like that? Are there meetings that facilitate that as well?
Yeah, so regional council is made up of councillors from Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. So the people you elect they make decisions on behalf of both the region of Peel and their city, and city of Brampton or city of Mississauga. So they make policy decisions just like your member of parliament or your member of provincial parliament. So absolutely. So indirectly, they're our boss. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they make the big decisions too, right? They ultimately decide what kind of happens with everything. You guys present the issues and work together to find solutions.
Yeah. Where it gets a little bit complicated, of course, is that municipal government has specific roles. Provincial government has specific roles, and federal government. Yeah. So things like roads and garbage and water and sewage is a city and municipal issue, regional issue. So some things are are outside of their scope. And so that's why you need to advocate to your member of parliament or your member of provincial parliament. So people, and at the end of the day, it really shouldn't matter, actually. You know, if you're an elected official, we should all be working together, no matter what level of government, to try and resolve whatever the issue is.
I think it's a mindset thing too. You're like, I mean, and it's like you said, once you're passionate about it, you're going to kind of do anything it takes to help.
Yes. And that's it. And we have a lot of residents who are engaged in this work. So it's not just people getting paid by government or organizations.
And I think it's important for people to know that it's not just, you know, the city councilors that you have to bargain on, like, advocating for you. It's the people in the city that you live in.
Yes, exactly. Because I think if people understood, we have the power, right? Residents and citizens.
It's our voice. Our voice is the entire city.
That's right. So if we stood up and say, and you have seen it, examples where people get mad over something and then the decision gets reversed, right? So we have the power. It's just how we use that and whether we realize that or not.
Very cool. So Adaoma, what's next for you? what does, you know, the next couple years look like to you?
So I will finish my term at the JCA.
What do you hope to accomplish while as president?
Yeah, so one is to pay off the mortgage on the building. Because that's so important. Well, we're exactly. Well, we've moved. This is the third building.
Okay.
Yeah, so each time we get bigger, we grow. So that is a priority, to make sure that the organization is financially viable, because, you know, you can't just rely on government funding. We need to fundraise and to do other things. So there's the practical realities of running an organization, to make sure that there is broader engagement by both young people and other Jamaicans, Caribbean folks in the organization, that there is someone prepared to take over after I leave. And so that succession planning for me is really crucial, that we continue to be a voice for issues of concern, that people know that if there is something happening in Toronto or in Peel, like in the GTA, that we will be there to talk about it, to push for changes. So really, you know, that's kind of my focus for the next 2 years with JCA, just to see it through and to see a smooth transition, you know, to those who are going to come after me. Personally, you know, I don't know yet. I kind of, life has a way of presenting me with things when the time is right. You know, I really enjoy what I do at work. And my son is now 15. He'll be getting a driver's license.
He's going to be going to university.
Yeah, in the next couple of years. Exactly. So, you know, like, the time is just going by so quickly with him. So just making sure that he's okay, and that in my busyness, that you know, we're still good. I'd like to do a master's degree.
Really?
Yeah. So
after all that, you're still going to try and pursue a master's?
I need to.
What do you want to do your master's in?
So probably policy, some kind of policy work, or public administration. But it's been on my radar, and then every year something else comes up and keeps pushing it.
You've got to dedicate that time to a master's. That's the other thing.
Exactly. Right.
I mean, I know the personal struggle.
And while working full time and raising a teenager, and then projects come up, so I can't do it while I'm at the JCA. It's just I wouldn't be able to dedicate the time. But so hopefully, once this ends, then I can finally.
What about even, like, your own personal projects? Like, anything that you kind of want, like, any other passion projects on the side that you want to, you know, maybe revisit, go back, start, you know, thinking about?
Every once in a while, people say, you know, you should do the bridal show again. You should do the. And I'm like, I think the time has passed for that. But like I said, I'm. You know, politically, who knows? If the timing is right, I may jump back into that. And then that would take me in a direction. So I don't have any sort of bucket list things. I have always said that I do want to do some work in Jamaica. Just some development work, whether that, particularly for women in prison, because I think there are not a lot of services there, a lot of support.
That's actually one of the first things I've ever, like, really heard of someone trying, because I hear about the schools and the children in Jamaica and, like, even a little bit of the economy, but not women in prison in Jamaica.
Yeah, and there was a story a few years ago, and I can't even remember the details now, that kind of flagged that for me. And just, I thought, many of the women who are in prison have experienced some kind of abuse, have struggled with poverty, and just need supports. And so what happens when they get out? What happens when they're in there, particularly if they have children, who's taking care of the children, and so it is, I would say, as you described, maybe a passion project of mine. So in the coming years, I would like to do some work there. So when that opportunity arises, I will hopefully be able to take advantage.
Nice. So my last kind of summary is what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Good question. So I hope I raise a child who will be able to contribute as well. So that's, being a mother is very important to me. And I want him to understand that it isn't just about you, that you have a contribution to make, that you should leave a footprint that's more positive than negative. If there's an opportunity to help someone, to do so. And that's what I've really tried to do in my life. If there's an opportunity to make a difference, then I try and push ahead, even if it's not going to benefit me directly. And that was, a bit about why I ran, that women would see that it's possible to run in federal politics, and that really anyone could do it. You don't have to be connected. You don't have to be...
That's always important to remember. Right. You don't need to know someone. You just need to pick up and do it kind of thing.
You need to be passionate. You need to be strategic and think through everything. But if you wait for it, everyone else is going to wait to make that change. And so that's what I hope.
And then
that
nothing gets done.
Exactly. Right. And then we complain, and then we become cynical. So it's a cycle. So before you become cynical, right, think about what your contribution could be. Small, large, all of that makes a difference. And I hope that, through my life, that's really the legacy that I can leave, that I've tried to do what I could to make things better for someone.
Thank you so much, Adaoma.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. That has been another edition of Real Talk with Alyssa. Hopefully Grant will be back next week, but until then, we'll see you.